meeting. Trustee Belkane, will you please lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, before we get into the public comment section, I just wanted to set the record straight regarding Mr. Elder's comments at the last board meeting with respect to our website. Specifically, he made mention on 2 occasions during the presentation that he gave, stating that we, the village board, authorized payment of $3,000 for the website. That was an inaccurate statement. As shown on budget line 0101-1325-418, we budgeted $3,000 for the website. We actually paid $664.97. So at this time, unless anyone else has any announcements, I'll open up the public portion of the meeting. Please keep your comments to 5 minutes and give us your name and address.
Richard Walter, 20 Elm Street. First thing I'd like to do is address Jake. Guys have been doing an excellent job with all the snow and the cold weather. I just had one question. Hasn't had to be done in years, but I noticed banks on intersection corners are getting high enough that not only can't you see kids walking, but you can't see other cars coming the other way. Is there any plans to, or are you already started moving them back?
Well, we've been pushing back the shelving now.
On the streets, but I mean, just at the intersections, they are, so you're shelving it at a 4 and 5 foot high mark. Is there any plans to try to open up some of the intersections for visibility?
Yeah, we haven't done that yet. Certainly something we look into. We've been concentrating on trying to push it back to keep the main drains open in the business district. And
I know it's been buried.
no, it's not a big
We all
idea.
been buried.
Yeah.
All right, now, my main point tonight is, for a couple of 3 months, we've been talking a lot about our wonderful negotiating abilities within the village board. And one issue that's come up a lot is the giving away of Railroad Street for the new project down there. I presented several weeks ago that it was given away. The mayor countered with a whole list of details and even offered me a copy of his research, claiming that a previous village board actually gave the street away. I then replied that the previous village board did make the provision to give the street away, but never did, because the developer at that time, the development fell through, and he ended up in some serious financial problems. So the street was never transferred, and I submitted that this village board is the board. Mr. Cahill is the one that gave the street away. As I sat down that night presenting that, I was told I was still wrong, that this board did not give the street away. I would like to present some documentation to the village board, the attorney and the clerk. I also did my research, and I would like, this is a quitclaim deed transmitting the Railroad Street to Railroad Street Webster LLC. I'd like to ask the mayor to read to me the name, the signature on this deed.
Mr. Walters.
Would you just tell us and the audience?
I've been over this, we've discussed this.
Whose signature is on this deed?
I'm not reading anything to you.
I will read it. The signature is of one John Cahill, mayor. You gave the road away, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. You have a good evening.
You still deny it, even with your signature on it? Wonderful.
Anyone else this evening?
I'll just actually,
Sure. Go ahead, Jerry.
I was handed a letter today, this evening when we got here. Mr. Elder can't be here today, so he had some questions. But I'm going to say I prefer that Peter speaks to this on his own next week. I'll tell you that he was just concerned about complaints that are being made between employees against the mayor. So I think I'll leave that to him to be more specific in what he's talking about. But I assure you personally, I've been clear, and I know the board has been clear with the mayor on the management style that we would like to be. So we've had conversations, and that's all I'll say at this point. And Peter can speak to more of exactly what he's talking about, and then we can react to this in more detail. So thank you.
All right, first item up we have is a resolution to approve the minutes for the village board meeting of February 12th. Anybody have any questions? No, there wasn't a workshop at the regular board meeting. So. All right, nobody has any questions, I'll entertain a motion in a second to approve the minutes of the village board meeting for February 12th.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Trustee Belkane?
Aye.
Trustee Lancy?
Aye.
Trustee Ippolito?
Aye.
Trustee Byers?
Aye.
Mayor Cahill?
Aye.
Motion passes.
All right, next is a resolution to approve the claims and warrants. There is one issue I just wanted to bring up. There's, on page 1, you'll see a bill in there for Forge Electric for $610. I would like to, unless anyone else has any questions about any other bills on here, I'd like to approve the bills with the exception of Forge Electric. This specific bill came with 2 hours of overtime that we were charged. This is a subcontractor. I went through this year's entire bills, and we've never been paid, or never been charged for overtime from a subcontractor. So Jake is going to look into this further to find out why we were charged overtime. And that's the only issue that I'd like not to approve that specific bill until Jake has an opportunity to call and find out what happened. Okay?
Yeah.
Anybody else have any questions on the bills?
I reviewed them tonight.
Okay. All right, well, in that case, I'll entertain a motion and a second to approve the claims and warrants with the exception of the Forge Electric.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Trustee Ippolito?
Aye.
Trustee Lancy?
Aye.
Trustee Belkane? Trustee Byers?
Aye.
Mayor Cahill?
Aye.
Motion passes.
All right, next, Don, do you have anything for us this evening?
Only I just wanted to make sure that everybody got those 3 resolutions I prepared for establishing 3 reserve funds.
I did get them, and I'm in the process of reviewing them.
All right, well, if you could pay attention to, not necessarily the repair one, but the other 2, the description of, especially on the building and real property improvement reserve fund. You know, if you want to change how I described it, feel free to.
Okay.
It should probably be as specific as you can, though.
Okay, thank you.
And deciding however you want to fund those accounts and whatever you want to do with the balances that are in some existing reserve accounts. You don't necessarily need a formal motion for that. You can just do it, or a formal resolution. You can just do it by motion.
Okay, thank you. All right, next we've got the financial statements. What was that?
Yes. Are there any questions? We have been meeting and going through pretty much,
I didn't have any questions.
no?
These on a weekly basis. Well, I'll entertain a motion in a second to accept the financial statements for January as presented by our village clerk, Josette.
I'll make that motion.
Trustee Byers?
Aye.
Trustee Belkane? Trustee Ippolito?
Aye.
Trustee Lancy?
Aye.
Mayor Cahill?
Aye.
Motion passes.
All right, next we have a budget transfer and modification. Does everybody have that page? Identifying what the, it is. Well, essentially what we're calling for is moving money from the CHIPS personnel line to road salt, transferring the amount of $6,500. Jake, I don't know if you wanted to elaborate a little bit. It's essentially we're running a little low and we're planning ahead so that we have available salt.
Yeah,
So,
that's, I mean, everybody's been outside, so I'm
yeah,
sure.
it's pretty self-explanatory.
Yeah. Yep, it's, you know, it's a difficult year certainly, and we're having difficulty getting the salt right now so we're trying to order ahead. But in reality, we typically order about 300 ton a year. This year we ordered 375 for an allocation. We're required to buy 70% of that, and we've certainly got the 70% total. But you know, this year we can get up to 100. We're guaranteed up to 562,000, I think it is, 150% of what our allocation is. So, but there's price steps. The highest price right now is 53. If we get up to that 150, so we just want to make sure we have enough. I said in a meeting the other day between the town of Webster, and I said it between the town of Webster guy and the town of Pittsburgh guy, and they were both talking about the orders that they put in a little bit ago for 1,000 ton. And I kind of chuckled. I said, I think we've used 1,000 tons since I've worked here. And that's their order. I ordered 70 ton and was having trouble getting it, so. But that's, you know, that's,
We're due for a break in this weather, I'll say that much.
yeah.
All right, so we're moving from line number 01, 05, 512, 100, CHIPS personnel to 0105, 5142, 403. So I'll entertain a motion in a second to make that budget transfer.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Trustee Ippolito?
Aye.
Trustee Lancy?
Aye.
Trustee Belkane? Trustee Byers?
Aye.
Mayor Cahill?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Jake?
I don't have much, just a typical reminders this time of year. I want to remind people, I don't know if anybody saw on the news or on, I know it was all over Facebook and everything, there was a gentleman up from New York City, he's a retired firefighter, helping to shovel out hydrants. Went around, I think they got 35 or 50, I caught it, a little bit of it, but there's no one here in the village or in the fire department that shovels out the hydrants, so we kind of make sure the neighbors are shoveling out. You know, if there's someone, an elderly person that lives around there, make sure you can zip down there and clear out that hydrant, and try to keep them clear. In the fire department as well, and it certainly makes a big difference if we can get at that hydrant real fast. So make sure that those are shoveled out. And back to the salt, we've for years had what we call a sensible salting model, where we salt the hills, intersections, curves, and that's it. We're basically, a lot of our our streets are side streets. We have a lower speed on them, lower volume, so we don't put a bunch of salt down. It's indicated by the fact that we use 300 ton typically in the entire year. So we just, people have to drive, when it's this cold out, the salt's not real effective, so just drive careful and slow down. As Mr. Walter said, the visibility is reduced too when we have this much snow stacked up, so just take it easy on the roads and it'll melt sooner or later.
Anything else that can be used besides salt? I mean, doesn't salt just like not work after like 20 degrees?
Yeah, when it gets a certain temperature, it gets cold enough, the salt doesn't work, and a lot of times what we find, we're putting salt down basically for traction, and then when it does warm up, it's there a little bit to help melt. But there's different products you can put down. There's calcium chloride and things that we put down on the walks that works down to about -5, I think it is. But that's real expensive. And if people just go drive slow, it's something we can all kind of get through. And the main roads where there's higher speeds, the town typically will take care of for the state, and they salt. They use, obviously they have higher speeds, so they salt them kind of clear road. And I think it helps. It kind of tracks it in a little bit too. So they were borrowing some of their salt and they don't know it.
All right.
Yep.
Thank you.
That's it. Thank you.
Next, we have
just a public notification that's serial bond issue payment for bond obtained in 2012 will be made in the amount of $16,668.75 on March 12th. It's just a public notification.
Got 10, or can put it together
Okay.
and be written.
All right, why don't you put it together written, and then we can report on that and update at the next meeting then.
Yes, that one of them.
What's that? I was talking to Judy.
Question that was just posed. There was a question that was directed to the board at the last board meeting, and that was regarding any kind of statutory timeline that exists for the closing of the wells and the decommissioning of the well fields, whether anyone has checked into that or not. And it was in fact checked into a year and a half ago, because I was given documentation by Jake, and I've had conversations this week as well with both Albany and Monroe County, and I would like to put something together that would be coherent, cohesive, and respond to the public. But just briefly, there is no statute of limitations in terms of closing those wells. There's no statutory wording in the state DEC or county health establishing a timeline. So we'll let you know more. We'll put it together and we'll present it to the public.
Thank you. Anybody else have any announcements?
Yeah, I had a quick question. Maybe Jake, you can elaborate on it. Don, maybe you can elaborate on it. Since that recent email on Cricket came through
Yeah.
about the cell tower and whatnot, what are our plans or what are our contractual obligations in regards to that? How are we gonna handle the decommission, not the decommission of the wells, I'm sorry, I got the wells in my mind, the cell towers on the water tanks. Any feedback, anybody on that?
It's funny because I was in talking,
Yeah, well, a conversation I had with Jake today was the, you know, they had offered like almost $8,000 to leave the equipment on there. And I concur with Jake's sentiments on not doing that. So with respect to the contract itself, I haven't had a conversation with, I think his name is Ed or Eric. Is this just, I just got into this like 2 days ago, so.
Do you know anything about that? If they break this contract, is there any penalties involved or?
I haven't looked at that
Oh.
specific contract, I don't know if Jake has.
Yeah.
yeah, we did.
Usually, most of them have a clause that allows upon
They do.
a certain period of notice to get out of the contract.
Right.
Or get out of the lease.
It's 8D. 8D.
Usually Jake's pretty good at looking at those and making sure that
Right.
they have a legitimate out. If he has a question, he generally asks me, and he didn't mention anything on this one, so I assumed he looked at it and it was pretty clear cut that they had a right to terminate the contract. I'll be happy to look at it if you want.
Yeah, I think, you know, ADU is the thing here, but.
And what's our strategy moving forward with the continued revenue, you know, especially we're losing revenue from Cricket, that kind of brought this into light.
And we
And
lost
what-
Nextel, we lost another one, so
What is it, 3 years,
Nextel?
or was it like 3 years, we gotta make a decision through the county,
Yeah,
or?
right.
And they'll take the tower down, and,
That's what, it's written in the contract that they, if they don't need the small tank, they'll take it down at their cost.
and then we have to put the
Yeah,
cell tower
cell
up.
tower, correct.
yes,
So
that would,
we
and
really
they
haven't-
will get the surplus when they take it down, the material,
Get all the scrap.
they'll get the scrap.
So I think the estimate, you
value,
looked into
so-
that for the village doing that, and I think I recall you telling me that the estimate, if the village did it, was like $17,000 or something.
Yeah, it was
to that effect.
16 or 17,000.
17,000.
Because of the, it was offset the value of
Right.
the steel at the time.
Right.
It would offset the cost of it. I might want to reverse and maybe put it back on the agenda before we give them an answer for the workshop.
I was just, that's where I was going next.
Because
Yeah.
if they did offer, a year and a half ago or 2 years ago when Nextel came off, they offered the same thing.
Right.
To leave all the all the infrastructure on the tower for us because it was so valuable that
They didn't want it.
that we could use that to market it. And thinking if it was real valuable, you'd still be using it, so nice try. But we did keep one of their buildings, which was about a $50,000 building that was down, that little hut. But we made them take everything else off. But maybe it's, the timing wise, as Elle brought up, that with the three, we have, I think, 3 years from the lease date of cell tower revenue, and then they're gonna take the little tank down.
We gotta start
Maybe-
looking at that. It's,
Right.
But
Yeah, you're right.
It might
It's
be
been,
worth,
it's been a little over a year, because it's actually not when we signed the contract, but when we actually switched the water. So, and that was a year in December, so we got 2 more years yet, but you're absolutely right, Al.
but if they're talking about potentially taking that tower down anyway,
Right.
I don't think anybody's going to go on it between now and the time we take the tower down. So we might have kind of a free $8,000 there. At least it's worth a discussion that maybe in this case, so I kind of reversed what I said
Right.
before. In this case, it might be worth looking at saying, hey, they're gonna take it down anyway. There's,
Sure.
why not? Maybe we say, yeah, you can leave it up, but there is some stuff on, typically they're on both towers unless they're the
Right.
one that was up top. They're on both towers.
And they
So-
may have something on both of them too.
It might be worth looking into where their equipment is and pulling out their plans a little bit more.
Right.
And I was just thinking of that as we were talking about it, they're coming down.
Yeah.
now, would we have to build,
Yeah.
Yeah. We have to, the expenses on it.
what's the cost associated with that?
I think one estimate was like 150 grand
Yeah, 150, 175, somewhere
from
in there.
that company out in Williamson.
Yeah. but
Fred
there-
Nudd,
Yeah,
I-
not it.
Yeah, and there might be options to go look at look at an agreement or an RFP with a company that does towers.
Right.
Where they, we can charge for the tower, the land with the towers on itself, and they build the tower at their expense. They can certainly do it cheaper than we
Yeah, I
could.
talked to one company, and they want to keep like 50% of the revenue forever.
Yeah.
So they recover their money as far as their building the tower for 4 or 5 years. But they still keep 50% of the revenue for the duration. And I've talked to, when we talked to, what was that gentleman's name? In
Nudd?
Williamson?
Lowell Nudd?
Yeah. He didn't have a very positive input with respect to the one company we had talked
Right.
to.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so. Yeah, Josette, if you'd put that on the workshop agenda, that'd be great.
Yes.
Thank you. Thanks, Al. Anybody else have anything this evening? All right, so we'll open up the phone lines if anyone would like to call in. Number to call is 265-3772. Please give us your name and address. All right, seems we're not going to be getting any calls this evening, so I'm going to entertain a motion in a second to enter into, do you have something?
I have an announcement.
All right.
The Webster Herald came out today, and it inadvertently not left off because it was sent to the Herald but not published by the Herald for the Planning Board agenda, which will be next Thursday, March 5th. There was one item that was listed, that was the owner at 135 East Main Street looking for an application to erect a garage addition. But the second item that should have been on there and that I will make everyone aware of that's watching is the proposed owner of 77 East Main Street, application to change the use of old Burger King building to, quote, the original mac and cheese, unquote, restaurant. Applicant also seeks use of current drive-through, requesting relief from current zoning, which does not allow drive-throughs in the central business district. Applicable zoning section 175-22B, permitted structures and uses. And the property is zoned central business. So that is a second item. It was not part of what appeared in the paper. They left it out, and so I'm making that known to everyone. Yes?
If you look under the legal notices, it was listed there.
the
But
zoning
in terms of the planning board agenda, it
agenda
was not.
wasn't.
Yeah, planning board
It was
agenda,
weird.
the two items were both.
And then
There, not under planning board, but
I talked to Lynn Barton, she's right behind him, she never, on the last two occasions that they've been on, she never got a letter at all. And she is a backdoor neighbor to them. So I don't know what happened there.
All right. I'll entertain a motion in a second to go into executive session to discuss the possible employee disciplinary action.
With respect to a particular person,
Yes.
just the language in the statute.
Thanks.
I think it's our attorney.
You don't have to say who the particular person is.
Oh, sorry.
Just so you know, the rationale is, because technically, if you read it as written there, you could be discussing like a policy in general about employee discipline. That's not subject to.
Right.
An executive session.
That is about a particular
But
employee.
regarding a particular person, it is subject to
Actually,
executive session.
particular employees, plural, not singular.
Who made the motion and second?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Trustee Polito?
Aye.
Trustee Belkane? Trustee Byers?
Aye.
Trustee Lancy?
Aye.
Mayor Cahill?
All right.
At 7:50.
Jake, would you join us also, please?